In video obtained by TMZ, a worker on a floor below Trump can be heard shouting something that included the words, quote, pedophile protector. Apparently, of course, in reference to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and the delayed, heavily redacted release of the Epstein files. Well, the president is then seen pointing down at the worker, either mouthing or yelling the F word and the word you, and then giving the middle finger.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. This is how you resist. I know it might not seem like much. It's not the same as neighbors in Minneapolis locking arms to defend their communities, or researchers like Chris Goldsmith risking the wrath of the DOJ to ferret out the truth. But these small acts of defiance, calling out the President of the United States in public, they add up. And you can tell it's getting to him, the most powerful man in the world, with enough nuclear weapons at his disposal to destroy the planet. He was so rattled by this union brother calling him out that he cracked. And what a perfect metaphor for what his administration has become, giving a middle finger to some auto worker as the regime defends pedophiles. I can't think of anyone better to talk with about this kind of resistance than Ken Casey of the punk rock band Dropkick Murphys. I had so much fun in this interview. A little context might help. Ken and I have gotten to know each other pretty well. We went to Ukraine last year with the relief convoy delivering ambulances to frontline units. The Dropkicks also headlined the Unite for Veterans rally in D.C.
We've got an incredible lineup and a legit rock and roll band joining us. This is a band that doesn't just talk the talk. They walk the walk. They live their values. Dropkick Murphys!
Most amazingly of all, for me at least, I got to produce in Kyiv a collaboration between Ken Casey and a local punk band on a Ukrainian version of the Dropkicks' resistance anthem, Who'll Stand With Us. There is no reason that I should have been behind the mic. I don't have that kind of talent. But there I am, singing backup for Ken Casey in a recording studio in Kyiv, Ukraine. If you haven't already seen the full single, check out the link below. It is so good. The thing you gotta know about Ken and the Dropkicks is that these guys really do live their values, from standing alongside Ukraine's defenders to standing up to would-be dictators right here at home. Here's my conversation with Ken Casey of the Dropkick Murphys on resistance, courage, and the punk rock tradition of raising a middle finger to those who abuse their power. Ken, it is great to have you on the show. I don't think we have talked since the Ukrainian version of Who'll Stand With Us came out. That was a blast. Yeah. What's the reception you've gotten from that?
A lot of people say the background vocals really put it over the top. They were outstanding. Someone in there allegedly had the voice of an angel. Might have been you. I don't know. That trip was so amazing, but it was so kind of just oddly awesome too, in the midst of that, and so much, negativity in the sense that, it's war and people are, fearing for their lives. But then at the same time, to get to see some friends and make music, but I think that sums up what the Ukrainian people like, that like in the midst of all this, they're trying to persevere with their lives and just go on and make the most of it. And, I think the song was just another, good sign of unity that the American people haven't forgotten about the Ukrainians, although some have, but yeah. I think they feel, like people have their backs. And I think in some ways that's just as valuable as weapons, you know what I mean, at some points.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I loved how the guys captured the spirit of your original song, Who'll Stand With Us, which was about us here standing up to the government overreach and the oligarch class. And they're asking the same question over there, and it is existential for them. But it raises this reality that the resistance that we're part of here in this country, in some ways, has become globalized. I mean, the whole world is actually threatened by MAGA and Trumpism. And you see that in vivid color this week with his threats against Greenland. I feel like, I don't know, we need an Arctic version of Who'll Stand With Us. But that message feels like it it has to resonate around the world now, given the ambitions of this president.
Well, I think, in every election worldwide, these same billionaires, the Elon Musks of the world, have meddled and financed and tried to sway not just American elections, but other elections, and a lot of other countries, thankfully, have, fended off the far right. But, MAGA would love nothing more than to see more countries. They would have loved to have seen Canada, be from the same mold. And they may have, had he not threatened to invade them. His stupidity is sometimes the only thing that saves us from his worst ambitions, I think. But I will say this, man, as someone who travels the world and for years for 30 years in the band, have caught the wrath, so to speak, of what the world thought of America and their foreign policy and whatnot. When we first started to go through this in the first Trump term, and even early on in this second term, I feel like Europeans looked at it as, hey, we know that you're not part of this crazy half of America that wants this. So you kind of got cut out of the hatred. And I sense a little bit now where it's like, hey, you know what? If you're not willing to go out there and be on the streets and putting your body in front of a bullet if need be, then the world's getting ready to blame even us on the sane side. Because, a lot of Americans that say they're not for this are still not out in the streets trying to stop it. And I think that if we're not careful, by the time everybody is awake and mobilized to a degree where we could have the impact we need, it might be too late.
It's Ken Harbaugh with a quick break to tell you about something new. Battle Buddies is my latest weekly show where I try to find common ground with a conservative who I consider a true friend, David Bellavia, the only surviving Medal of Honor recipient from the war in Iraq. A Navy vet, an Army vet from opposite ends of the political spectrum, engaging in a civil conversation like we used to have. From the ICE immigration crackdowns to Trump's takeover of Venezuela, David and I take on the toughest issues of the day with genuine respect for each other, in spite of our very different perspectives. They're not always easy conversations, but they're always important, and that's something we need more of. Respectful dialogue between people who disagree, but who have figured out how to stay friends. Check out Battle Buddies today. 2 vets, 2 views, 1 nation. Find us on the Valor Media Network. The link's below. Thanks. You have definitely put yourself out there. You've put the band out there. I was sharing with your manager this idea that a lot of your fans are talking about now, and new fans to the band, that you've become the bard of the resistance, the voice of the resistance movement, similar to Dylan in the 60s. And you saw that in the nomination of the band, the selection of the band as a voice of the year, resistance voice of the year by Rolling Stone magazine. Were you surprised by that? Did you get a heads up?
No, but the competition isn't exactly thick. You know what I mean? Especially in the punk rock world. I mean, not to say that other, Jack White and, Eminem and people, there's other people speaking out, of course, Bruce, of course, but I just think in the punk world is like where you expect it to be the tip of the spear, and it's very quiet. I'm in the midst of trying to organize something to get some of the bands to, come off the sidelines and without, to just say, hey man, like we've done it and yeah, we've lost fans, but they haven't shut our business down, and we know that like we're doing the right thing. And I think that there's a lot of bands that they're just not sure what will happen. No, I know specifically some bands might have, loved ones, wives that are green cards and, trying to get citizenship. You have other guys, especially in some of the older bands, that just don't want the threats and and some of them have the attitude of like, we've already been there and done it. We did our work. It's like, you did. You sung about Reagan, maybe, but did you really, like, were we where we are now? And did you have to actually potentially put your potential life on the line? No. So get the fuck up and get out of your house is my attitude. But anyway, I feel like no matter what happens, I thought the guy from the Ford plant summed it up the best. It's like, you get your moment, you better take it or you're going to regret it. You know what I mean? And I feel like Dropkick Murphys, if we didn't jump in head first, we would have later very much regretted it.
Yeah. I love that guy not only had the presence of mind in that moment to call Donald Trump out, but then when he was asked about it, when he was asked about being suspended by the Ford Motor Company, he said exactly the right thing. He said, basically, you get one shot in this life to make a difference sometimes. You better use it. And you know who lined up behind him? And this was, to me, the best part of it all, the UAW. Not exactly the standard bearers for speaking truth to power, at least when it comes to Trump, but they had his back. Yeah. That's what the UAW is for. Yeah, right?
Absolutely. Take care of their workers. And, listen, some of these people on the right that have, they call someone a horrible word or whatever, and then next thing you know, they get a GoFundMe for, all kinds of money. It's like, well, good to see it happen to someone who did the right thing for once, instead of being funded for doing something stupid.
I love that you're pulling together or trying to pull together other bands, other artists with influence. But I get the impression that your role in this was a little bit accidental, that you didn't set out a plan at the beginning of the era of Trump to be the bard of the resistance. You just found yourself speaking your mind in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and you got nominated without asking for it. Is that fair? You didn't sign up for this, did you?
Yeah, well, I guess you're right, because, some of the, like when I'm having an interaction with someone on the audience from the stage, I mean, I never know what's being captured, what isn't. I've had many nights where there's been far more interesting or far more ugly or far more peaceful, whatever you want to say. But, that original one, a couple of them that went viral, kind of first thing it did is told all our fans where we stood, because believe it or not, and this is the funny part with MAGA, even if you spell it out, as long as you keep it to your lyrics and you don't talk about it too much, they'll put up with you. You know what I mean? It's like the way they want their women, like just keep your thoughts to yourself, please, And so when we had the audacity to really publicly say it from the stage, so many people talk shit on the band stance. So many people around the Boston area, like in my, I'm a white guy, Irish guy in my 50s from Boston. Like, there's a lot of people here that I know, like unband related, that were the prime people that switched sides when Donald Trump came down the aisle, and fell for the lie. And I'll hear all the time, this so-and-so is talking shit about you, this and that. No one yet to this day has said a word to me on the street. And that tells me two things: that I think deep down inside, somewhere in their core, they know they can talk shit all they want, but somewhere deep down inside, they know they're on the wrong side of history, And that's kind of summed up by, but when you think about, like, I'll give you an example. Marty Walsh, he was an amazing mayor of the city of Boston for 2 terms, and was a state senator before that. Was very active in the labor movement. Went on to be Biden's labor secretary for the first half of Biden's term. But was the epitome of the Boston blue collar, white working class Democrat. And I stood with Marty Walsh, you know, and all these people holding signs for Marty Walsh for mayor when he was first running. And by the end of Marty Walsh's term, he was so hated by that crowd, like, you know, sanctuary city, blah, blah, get out of here, you know, the vaccine stuff. Like, and I said, man, half these people were holding a sign for him 8 years ago. But that was right around that time where the shift happened and Trump and MAGA convinced, you know, working class white people that they had their best interest and that they were the most identifiable with their group, which is hilarious because it's a bunch of friggin' billionaires. Donald Trump wouldn't piss on these people if they were on fire. Yeah. But yet they'll hitch their wagon to him. I just don't get, if nothing else, like I understand there's racism in the world. None of that shocks me or fools me, sadly. You know what I mean? But like to align yourself with a guy who's obviously has such disdain for you. It's just, it never ceases to amaze me.
That was part 1 of my conversation with Ken Casey. Check out part 2 tomorrow, where Ken and I talk about standing up to ICE. And we might just share a sneak preview of the Dropkick's new upcoming single, Citizen ICE. See you then.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.